Thank you, Max. Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. This is a virtual special meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 3 o'clock p.m. on the dot. With that, I'll take roll call. Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Edward Chernowski.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Stan Mills. We have enough quorum and able to formally conduct business. Commissioner Legree is not able to be here today. First, I'd like to welcome all the watchers that are out there, and would like to also thank those that have registered to participate in today's meeting. Those persons are Mr. Hoyt Decker, Mr. Richard Perry, and Mr. Bunky Markert. I'd like to thank them, and we'll be calling on you at appropriate times during the meeting to be able to get your input and feedback. So thank you for watching and registering. With that, I'd like to note that no correspondence was identified. And now I'd like to go on to the main purpose of this special meeting is to conduct an introductory discussion on how to approach a review of Chapter 253 trees and related provisions in the Rehoboth Beach Code, including but not limited to review of the current Chapter 253 trees, Article 1, City Parks and Shade Tree Commission regulations, and Article 2, Comprehensive Tree Regulations, plus evaluation of a new proposed Chapter 253 Tree and Landscape Ordinance as proposed by the Rehoboth Beach Law Oversight Committee, and a review of other tree code reviews and associated studies. With that, you'll note that there is a support document embedded into this agenda that gives an outline that we're going to talk about today. I would like to make a note that the RBLOC, Rehoboth Beach Law Oversight Committee, is a committee that has been sunset. So I'd like to thank Mr. Decker and any others participating from this point forward to giving us insight into how that committee came up with their new proposal. With that, I'd like to go directly to the document. And when I want to remind you that when there's a document on the screen, I can only see part of the commissioners. So if you have a comment, you might wave your hand, but also speak up because, again, I can't see everybody. This is a document that I created. I have assigned, or Commissioner Susan Gay has agreed to be liaison/secretary for this topic through the duration. I want to thank her. So if you have any questions during the middle of the week, you can certainly send them to her and copy me on them if you will. And then she will help massage this organization list. Again, the outline we're going to go through, my intention is to go through line by line. Obviously, this is my input with some input from Susan Gay. And I want to get your input as well as input from any of the city departments, city committees, commissions, as well as members of the public. I feel comfortable that once we get through this exercise that we'll have a better path forward and we'll go from there. So again, I'm intending for this to address how to approach the tree code review rather than to analyze specific content of the proposed tree codes and support documents at this time. So points for discussion are noted on the document. First of all, I'd like to take several minutes to identify all the documents. I certainly don't know all the documents that have been produced, and maybe you all know and others know so that we can have a full complement of supportive documents before we start the true analysis of this chapter. You can see if you've gone to the legislative portal, you can see on the legislative portal in the document center, you're able to access different folders on different topics such as Baymart and trees and current topics, etc. What we want to do is modify that so we can create our own folder that says tree. The first main folder would be a tree code review beginning February 2021. And underneath of it, current codes would be accessible. The current code is divided into 2 articles, and the intent would be to have somebody be able to click on the link, and both of those articles would come up for their review. Are there any questions or input so far?
Mayor, the only thing I'll say is that these are not yet collected as a new grouping on the portal, right? This is the plan for it, but they're actually not there yet.
No, this is our preview.
Right.
That will then be, when we finalize it, we'll then give it to Ann. And I will make a note that, you know, it may be massaged a little bit from what's here, right, due to the whatever the capabilities are on the online portal. Right. Thank you for mentioning that, Susan. With that, we want to go to the previous proposed code change. If some of you may recall that the Planning Commission was tasked with doing their own tree study, and they did a report back in August 2014. So I'd like to have that available online. I don't know that, does anybody recall any other tree code reviews done? I don't believe so. Not hearing anybody, we'll move on. Under that, I have a folder for current proposed change and support documents. With that, this is where we would highlight any and all appropriate Law Oversight Committee notes and studies and memos. I'll call on Hoyt in a minute, but we've got there the proposal from them for a brand new Chapter 253. They're identified a memo from the Law Oversight Committee dated July 6th. I believe this is the memo that includes the handover of the proposed new chapter to the commissioners. I think it was, well, it was back in March 2020, right at the onset of COVID, and that's why there's been no action since it was handed over to the commissioners. Within that memo of July 6th, I believe, besides handing it over to the mayor and commissioners at that time, there's also 2, what do you call it, dissenting views, one by Mr. Decker and one by Sturgis Dodge, that I thought were appropriate to include in here. Excuse me. And then the RBLOC, I'm not familiar with this. Commissioner Gay thought it had been handed over to the commissioners already. And a comparison by the LOC of Parks and Shade Tree Commission cases using the current proposed new chapter. So maybe Hoyt can confirm that. Then I have other. I'd like to, at this moment, check in with Mr. Decker to see if you have any other documents that we should obtain and make available online.
It's here, but he does not have an audio doing.
Hoyt, we'll come back to you. Apparently we don't have an audio feed from you. If you come back later, that's fine. If for some reason you can't get on, then Susan or I will contact you afterwards to get your additional input. Thank you very much. Commissioners, with that, we'll go to the next folder that we designed. That's for city department presentations and analysis. There was something done by Liz Lingo, our city arborist, in July 2016 that very well might be appropriate, and I'd like to put that in there. And then other question mark. Liz, are you on the line by any chance?
Yes, I'm
Nope.
here.
Oh, do you know of any other studies, comparative studies, memos, from your department that we should put it online?
Um, well, I did create a really very simplistic bullet point of the main differences between the existing code and the proposed code. So I'd be willing to share that. And then trying to think, Commissioner Gay had asked me some time ago about doing a comparison of permits submitted under the existing code versus the new code. So kind of taking what Hoyt had done with the appeals, but doing it because so few things go to appeal, so few of the permits, doing it with just your everyday permit that are submitted.
I think that would be a very good idea. So maybe check in with Commissioner Gay to see what the parameters might be for that study. But I think that would be excellent. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I'm glad Liz brought that up because we had talked about it, and it's an excellent, it was her idea, and it's an excellent idea because she reminded me that Hoyt's comparison is quite detailed. I'll tell you that. There's a lot in it, but since, as she said, since only a few cases, small percentage of cases go to Parks and Shade Tree, it'd be useful to compare it to the run-of-the-mill everyday cases. And I believe, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, you told me that the best way to do that would be to to have categories like new construction, and frankly, I can't remember what the other categories were. I assume renovation is one, but whatever. That to have them in to sort of be representative of those that you see every day.
Yeah, try to pull some out. So, like, say a dead tree, a denied permit, new construction. Somebody that's just taking out a couple of declining trees or wanting to re-landscape. So try to get a good cross section. Because I think the development, the new homes are what tends to get all of the attention, but sheer permit number wise, that is only a percentage, it's not, I wouldn't even think it's 50% of the permits.
Okay, great.
Very good, Liz. Very good, Liz. We'll have you work with Susan and me to come up with those studies and everything. We'll be asking you later, as we will be asking all the departments and committees. I'll get to you, Pat, what the time frame is you needed. Obviously, a week may not be enough time, maybe a month, maybe two or something. So we'll come back to you on that later. With that, Pat, I can go to you, or I understand Mr. Decker's on the line. Can we go to him first?
That'd be fine.
Thank you.
Yes, Hoyt, specifically asking you, I mean, you can address anything, but specifically right now addressing your little section there in this outline, and if there are any other documents you can identify that we should pull up and make available online.
Okay. Well, first of all, I got to say my apologies. I'm totally inept at trying to function with this system. And maybe I can get some remedial help from somebody somewhere along the line, but somehow I've managed to get plugged in. So what I would note here is that your first two items, the memo of July 6th with the attachment for the actual proposed ordinance change dated March 20 are accurate. The next item is a comparison that I prepared at some time after that July 6th meeting. I had some back and forth with Liz on it. There was a revision made based on that, and I'm not sure which copy you have there, but I'm happy to supply the revised one if you don't have that. And then finally, there's a covered memo that conveyed that attachment, that comparison attachment to the Board of Commissioners, and that was done on August the 19th, and I can submit that as well. Beyond that, I'm not sure what exactly you're looking for, but I'm happy to work with you.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Gay, if you made notes, Hoyt, if you would send Commissioner Gay and copy me on the August 19th memo and also your comparison there, we'd appreciate it.
Will do.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I saw the revised one or not, so that's great. I'm glad to know about that.
Thank you. Commissioner, well, we can go back to city departments. Commissioner Calusi?
Yes, I just wanted to mention, I don't know if this is the right place, but I can't remember what year it was, but there was a tree inventory. We got a grant to do a tree inventory, and with that, there were a variety of trees planted and on public property. It might be useful to know a little bit about that inventory, perhaps where the trees were planted on public property. I don't know.
Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner. That tree inventory, I believe, is available right now online. My intention would be that this outline is specific to things that help us advance the tree code. And so I don't know whether to put that in here or to leave that in the second tree folder, which just says trees-miscellaneous, which would have other studies in there. Does anybody have a preference for where it would fit?
I actually think it would be useful here. And part of the reason I say that, and I don't want to put Liz on the spot, but part of the reason I say that is that she tells me she keeps that up to date. So that inventory was done in 2010. So even though, and I until recently had thought it was a outdated document, but she said she actually keeps the inventory updated. So if we could have the original and the updates, depending on how much work that would be great.
Okay, so you're asking for the original plus the most current updated version.
If we can, that would be great. If I'm understanding her correctly, that she keeps it up to date.
Liz, can you respond, please?
Sure, Commissioner, I do keep an up-to-date inventory, but it's not, so when Davey did that in 2010, they just did it like on an Excel spreadsheet. Now, if they were to do the inventory, they have their own updated software. So I use something called iTree. So I'm sure there's a way to make it available, but it would be in a somewhat different format.
Yeah, that's fine.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Again, I can't see everybody on the screen, so if you have something, shout something out.
Mayor, I've got a question.
Who's there?
Ed.
It's
Commissioner Sernowski, go ahead.
Yeah, and this may be covered in one of the sections here, but one thing that I always find helpful is to look at the data that the Law Oversight Committee used to come up with some of these suggestions. And before the pandemic, I had sat in on quite a few of those meetings, and I tend to remember that there was some data from the Tree and Shade Committee, from Building and Licensing on the number of permits and the types of permits, all of the information that they would have used to help guide them through the new suggestions that they were making within the code. I just tend to find that backup data and information helpful in understanding.
Commissioner Sernowski, if you would, since you might know what you're looking for, would you connect with Mr. Decker and seek that information and then forward that to both Commissioner Gay and myself? And we'll be sure that that's added appropriately.
Sure.
Can I jump
you.
in here?
Yeah, please do.
It's Hoyt. Can
Yeah.
I jump in? So to respond or to supplement what Ed just said, I think, and I'm happy to work with him as well individually, but I believe a lot of that stuff is available both in the minutes and attachments that were created as we went along meeting by meeting.
Okay.
So.
All right. I'll look there too.
Well, but still, we can still ask Ed to help with research in that, to delegate things. Thank you very much, Hoyt and Ed. With that, we'll go to the next folder that says, well, still within the city department presentations analysis, we want to double check with any city departments, streets departments, building and licensing, to see if they have any input on that particular category. With that, we'll go to the next folder. It says City Commission Committee Analysis. At times during this tree review, I expected mayor and individual commissioners might come up with their own studies or data or something. So this gives us the opportunity to log them in and archive them in this one particular area. And also it allows for the commission and the two committees here, Parks and Shade Tree Commission, Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee, and Environment Committee, to be able to have time. My expectation, see if you agree, would be that we charge these three groups with doing an analysis of the proposed new code and comparative analysis, and come back and bring us their comments from their perspective. And later, again, we'll talk about the time frame that they need to accomplish this. But that's the intent here, is to give them the opportunity to be able to present things and have them archived and available online. Any comments from the commissioners?
Well, I had actually mentioned at our last Trees and Green Infrastructure meeting last week that we were going to be doing this, and I wasn't sure what form it was going to take, and I would let them know at the next meeting because I wanted to get through this one first. I will tell you, it'll be a challenge to do that and anything else in 1 hour a month meetings, but we will get it done. And somehow, you know, I'm not sure exactly whether we're going to go over it line by line. I've already asked the committee members for input. I haven't heard from everyone, but you know, I certainly would like for us to have input. We had input in the past, some of which I may talk about today, but I'd love for everybody to really look at it in detail.
Well, I think maybe this is a good time to talk about it, but at the end, I was going to talk about timelines for the meeting number 2, meeting number 3, and subsequent meetings. And that, for me, would be largely dependent upon how long each of these commissions or committees need to conduct their studies. I would imagine they can't do it in one meeting.
Correct.
And we're only allowing one meeting a month, so I need to hear back, we need to hear back from these groups on how much time they think they need, you know, for the Environment Committee, by example. Can they do it in 1 month, or do they need 2, 3, or 4 months? And I think we need to be realistic, you know, because this has been going on for, well, forever, it seems. And I think we've got a good start today. And I think that as soon as we get all their input, we'll have good momentum to go forward. But I think we have to allow them sufficient time to be able to do that homework. With that, we'll go to the next
comment from the peanut gallery.
Yeah, please.
Hoyt, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep interrupting. I had no way of waving my hand. It doesn't do me any good. So the memo that I referenced that I will send along to Susan contains information about how we did an outreach after that July 6th meeting. We actually contacted just about everybody that had been involved in one way or another as a commenter or a participant in the LOC meetings up to that point. That included specifically the committees that you mentioned, Parks and Shade, the Tree Committee, Environment Committee. So they were all sent a request to provide comments. And now I'm working off my poor memory. And I believe the Parks and Shade Tree folks actually did respond. I don't know that I got responses from the other people, but again, that would be in that memo, which I'll be passing along. So some of this work may be done. And by the way, there were substantial comments from members of the public in response to that too. So.
Well, all that, I think, all that would be very helpful, and I think I would want to make that available online, so we'll make a spot for it. You know, since you first presented that and collected that input, we've got different compositions of memberships on the Parks and Shade Tree Commission, on the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee, and the Environment Committee. So I think that they would be very interested in looking at those reports. And we'll leave it to them, I believe, to determine whether they want to stick with their former recommendations and analysis, or whether they want to tackle it another time and add on to it. So that'd be very helpful.
More is better. More is better.
Who's talking?
Hoyt.
Hoyt, okay.
It's
Yep, very
Hoyt,
good.
sorry.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
I
shut
can't
up.
identify you sometimes. That's all right. With that, we'll go to the next folder, references to other city codes that impact trees. I've caught little glimpses of notes from people over the years that, you know, it's not just necessarily the tree code that we have to look at, but we might need to look at other codes, codes that mandate where sidewalks go and how they're constructed, and driveways and things like that. And so I don't know any other codes off the top of my head, but that's where I think we need to address that specifically at one or more meetings. And again, this folder is to be able to put those codes in there and any recommended changes. Susan, did you have any input on that?
No, but this is something I want to gather, because I had talked to Liz at one point about the fact that we don't allow permeable sidewalks, and I think we ought to look at parts of the code that are unfriendly to trees and make sure that we clean that up as part and parcel of doing the tree ordinance.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll go to the next folder, which is public correspondence, of course. Very, very important to have here. That public correspondence, in my mind, could be individual citizens, but it could also be tree vendors or other businesses. It could be anything, and put in there. And I believe I understand from Ann that that we received public input or correspondence right about the time the RBLOC handed over their tree report to the mayor and commissioners back in March, well, exactly a year ago. And so we want to dig up all that correspondence. And do you have a folder of all that old correspondence available?
No, I don't, Mayor. I'll have to go back into my archives.
Okay, so that's something. Thank you, Ann. So that's something we might need to research, because obviously we don't want to negate any public comment just because it's aged, so to speak. It's still relevant, would be relevant, because it's still talking about the same proposed new chapter 253. Next folder, related studies, presentations, resolutions, anything. I'm not sure how many of you remember, but was it maybe 8-10 years ago, we had a resolution adopted by the commissioners, a goal to increase the tree canopy. I'd like to find that and put it in here. And then I was made aware of 2 other studies, the selected excerpts related to trees from the public survey for the CDP. CDP had an extensive survey. Susan, could you explain what you did there? Because I think you authored
Yes.
this little.
Yeah, I did that for for our tree committee meeting in the fall of 2019. I basically went through, I can't remember exactly how many of the questions related to trees and natural environment. It was probably 6 or 8 throughout the survey. And I collected the responses and showed, how people viewed trees. And I think may go a little bit beyond trees into natural area. But at any rate, it was designed to sort of give an overview of how trees fared in the survey for the new CDP. Because that survey was so extensive, and because something like 700 people responded to it, I thought it was good data to have, and it was actually very interesting.
Very good, thank you. And then the next one, Liz, are you there? Can you explain what this is? The city apparently did a survey through their Mind Mixers program and back in 2018.
I'm not sure about a Mind Mixer survey. A few years ago, prior to Mind Mixer existing for us, we did, I want to say like SurveyMonkey or Google Surveys, very simple tree survey that went out, and we got a huge fee. I mean, we had like 300 or 400 people respond to it. So we had a really great response rate. I don't have those results like easily accessible, but I'm sure they're somewhere either in my email or perhaps in the former, because I had a lot of help from IT and communications department. So
I think they're on the website. I've seen them recently.
Okay, maybe they are.
It's there. We just have to pull it into this format, but it's there on the
Well,
site.
we probably have more details then we probably cleaned it up to put it on there too, would be my
Okay.
guess.
Yeah.
I think if we go back and look at them, we'll be able to find that.
Yeah, I'm almost positive IT or communications had sent me, like a 20-page PDF about it. So.
Okay. Great.
Very good. Thank you, Liz. Can anybody think of, we're going to go to the public in a minute
Mayor.
on this topic, but can
Mayor,
anybody think of any other studies, presentations, resolutions that we should be identifying and retrieving and putting online?
Mayor Patrick here. I have a question, if you will, in this category. I'm not quite sure if it fits here or we could expand the category to include the word resources. The Delaware Department of Agriculture has the Urban and Community Forest Program, which may be beneficial to us, and just, again, data that's specific to the state of Delaware and how that may match up. And then I'd also be curious to know, I know the current CDP is in draft form, but if there would be any possibility of obtaining the chapter or section that has been developed specifically to address trees or green infrastructure within the updated CDP that could maybe impact the rewriting of this particular section of the code.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think those are two excellent ideas. The CDP thing is actually discussed on, I think, the next page, but I think we can address that by perhaps looking and making some excerpts from what the current CDP says about trees, and then see what we can glean about the new CDP and do the same thing for comparison purposes. In terms of a new folder or tab called resources or something, we can find a place. If you could provide us, do that little homework, provide the documents you think appropriate from the Department of Agriculture and get that to Susan and myself,
Sure.
That would be very helpful. We'll find a place for it.
Okay.
Any other input on this?
Yeah, Mayor, this is Dick. Another very valuable resource would be through the University of Delaware Cooperative Extension Service. They have a great deal of information that could come to bear on this. Again, it would be kind of sorting through all of that and finding the most pertinent and relevant information, but it is an excellent resource.
What's the name of it?
Thank
again?
you. Thank you, Commissioner. Let me, while he's on that, let me.
The University of Delaware.
Cooperative, okay.
Can we, while I'm in the mood to delegate, Dick, would you mind helping to look for some appropriate information?
I will do that. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, there is a second folder. Again, this was trees miscellaneous. I can't remember what's in there. You can go look at it. But any of the documents on trees that were not related to the tree code review were to be put in this miscellaneous folder. And so that kind of concludes how I believe and how we have worked together to organize the documents. I would like to go to the members of the public to see if they have any input on any of these particular things that help us identify any more documents that could be put online. We've got Mr. Perry or Rick, are you there? He's not on. Hoyt Decker, Bunky Margaret, not on. Okay, well, that was quick and easy. And before we move on, any other comments on the organization here? If not, we'll move on to the next thing. Well, solicit commissioner, staff, and other additional information. Well, we'll cross that off. We've just done that. So now I wanted to discuss with you how to approach the topic at future meetings and what the timeline might be. Obviously, we want to get all this information online and available. Ann's going to need a couple weeks at least to do that, maybe even as much as 3 weeks to be able to assemble everything, retrieve everything from you all, including the extra information identified, and get that online. So I'll work with her and see when the soonest, we can get that on, as soonest reasonable time to get that online and available. Then I would suggest that, goodness gracious, we need time to read the 1,000 pages of documents, that we just put up there, so that we can, educate ourselves with, the background. And then, of course, after that, and only until that's done, would we really want to solicit feedback from the public, and would welcome any time, but let's let them have all the documents on there so that they can see what we're seeing and working from. I did have a question on, we've talked about, city commissions, committees, streets department, building and licensing, arborist, providing information and doing some analysis and giving some input. Do we want to extend any invitations to any outside consultants? And I'm not even sure how to define outside consultants. It could be some of the tree vendors licensed in town. It could be anything else. Any feedback there, please?
Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Stranowski, please.
Yeah, two areas that I think is important, and it has been brought up recently, I think, in some of the correspondence with us. And I think utilities is a big one that we need to consider when looking at it. I think Mr. Williams provided some input on the situation recently. I can't remember if it was an electrical or sewer line. But Delmarva Power with some of their lines, I just think having their input in some way would be helpful.
And I didn't hear who you were pointing to. The Public Works?
Utility.
Yeah, Mr. Kevin Williams, I think.
Okay.
Recently weighed in a little bit on a plumbing issue that had occurred.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yes, well, you and I talked about this before, but I feel strongly that at some point in the process, and I don't know what the ideal time is, but at some point in the process, we need for the code to have professional code review. We used to do that as a matter of course. In fact, I looked up today to sort of remind myself, when we did the pool ordinance, when we did the rental ordinance, there was a code writer who vetted it basically for enforceability, for wording. And this is kind of over and above legal review that we would do through the normal process. And I know it's another step, but I think it's an important step. In my recollection in the past is it has been pretty short. In other words, he did it in one or two meetings, and that was that. But it is a step that I think we very much need.
Commissioner Gossett, I think you worked with in the past on the tree code, and you may have worked with Kyle Hoyd or Brian Hall.
Yes, both of those with Kyle with AEICOM, and also Brian Hall, who at that time was the urban forest manager for the state of Delaware. He has since moved on, but there is another individual that has filled that position and working through Connie Holland's office, trying to connect with that individual. So just to let them know what's going on and see if they can provide us some guidance or some comparative tree ordinances within the state of Delaware or nationwide, to be honest with you. So I would support the suggestion from Commissioner Gay about having a code review and perhaps even a beginning just to outline some goals or goals for the operation of the city, or generally speaking, I mean, of what we're trying to solve here, if you will, or what we want to obtain with the result of rewriting the code.
All right, thank you. Well, frankly, I would probably need to be sold on that, so I'd like you to do your marketing. If you both would work together and do some research and say, we do have our own city solicitor here. It would certainly share a legal perspective and help write it. But if you could help kind of sell your idea of a tree expert lending their input on the formatting and tree content, I think that would be very helpful.
Sure,
Anybody else?
put something together.
Thank you very much. With that, again, all this, I want to emphasize flexibility. The flexibility in the ability to put this together in a reasonable timeline and content that, you know, I may work with Susan and we rearrange the sequencing of some of these things. But this is a start, I think, and I think a very good start. Proposed content for tree meeting number 2. Again, we'll talk about timeline later at the end of this session, but one suggestion for proposed content for tree meeting number 2 is that we articulate the objectives of the tree code. I don't remember if the original tree code has a resolution with whereas clauses in it, but if we can find that. And then I think we need to further discuss and to define the goals of a successful tree code. For me, that is got double stars next to it. Because if we can't define what we want in a tree code, I believe it would be very difficult and challenging to analyze the proposed new tree chapter, but also analyze the existing one. And then perhaps, if time permits, for the same meeting number 2, then we turn it over to the Mr. Decker representing the Law Oversight Committee to give inputs. To advise what this charge was and instructions, you know, were they given anything written? How did they approach the topic? Let them present their new proposed chapter 253 again, and allow for dissenting opinions, of course, per that memo, if any of their members wanted to come back and speak. I think we can, again, be flexible there, but I think those are some of the things that I identified on how to approach that. I'm just going to move through my notes real quick and feel free to comment. The proposed content for tree meeting number 3, I wanted to get through this meeting 2 with the objectives and the law oversight proposal. I wanted to get done with that reasonably soon so that the commissions, trees, committees could have that knowledge as they approach their own committees to analyze everything. And then when we moved to meeting number 3, I was trying to do something more generic, any carryover from the previous meeting. And I thought there was a good time there to identify and discuss other city codes that may impact trees. Do that for the whole session. Again, that is to allow the commissions and committees and departments and Liz and time to be able to do their analyses and reports and come back to us. Beyond that, I believe the committee or the mayor and commissioner meetings on trees, special meetings, the content would evolve organically. We would re-articulate the objectives of the original tree code, review mention of trees within the current CDP and in the ongoing update of the CDP. It could be that by the time we get to that point, the CDP is already finalized, hopefully farther down the road enough that draft sections revolving around trees could be allowed. This is a point where we could certainly add the Planning Commission to the list of commissions if we wanted their opinion. I feel like they've got their hands full and that the talking could well be done through the CDP because it's the people's voice and what the Planning Commission determined to put in the new CDP, I think, is what is so important. And then just real quick, receive and respond to feedback from departments, committees, public, consultant. Are the objectives, and then we would do analysis with that. Are the original objectives achieved by the new proposal? What are deficiencies, remedies? Identify any new elements desired by city staff not in the current or proposed codes. Identify any problems or challenges with the current code that are not addressed or not addressed sufficiently in the new proposed code. Identify what's particularly good about the new code and any shortcomings. analyze input from everybody. That's kind of my thing. Again, I think we need to have flexibility. In terms of the timeline, as I said earlier, we need to give Ann 2 to 3 weeks and ourselves 2 to 3 weeks to be able to gather all this information, get it online and available. That would put our meeting number 2 anywhere from March 9th or 16th. Meeting number 3, I would suggest that I need to get feedback. I'll send a request for response from the commissions and committees to see how long they want to analyze and give us feedback, whether it's 2, 3, or 4 months. They need to be realistic and give us feedback because they've got their own schedules. Parks and Shade Tree Commission, for instance, their plate's liable to fill up, and they may have a hard time doing it on a short notice. So the meeting number 3 could very well be April 22nd or later. And again, all I can do is say we've got to be flexible, and I will keep you all up to date on, let you know what feedback I get from everybody and where the approximate timeline is. So with that, I'd like to get any further comments, and then we'll go to the public again.
Stan, I have a question about did you say, first of all, did you say March 16th for meeting number 2?
As a question mark, yes.
Okay. And would it be is it your intent, or is it okay if the committees start discussing this on their own between now and then, or are you thinking we should do some goal defining before the committees even start? I was unclear on that.
No, I think that's up to the commission and committee, what they want to do, how they want to approach it. My goal would be meeting number 2, since it is, to me, very important, and we should probably conduct that meeting for enlightenment of all the commissions and committees. I'd really rather get it done sooner than later. If I found we could have it March 9th, I would certainly go that route, and that may be a good target date at this point.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, because really what we're looking at is how long it will take to get all the documents collected and put up, right?
Right, correct.
All right, that's fine. Thanks.
And
Commissioner Gossett.
yeah, thank you. One of the things in preparation for that meeting number 2, if you read in current code 253 Article 2, you had spoken about the resolution of how it came about or what have you. But in Article 2, it specifically lays out a finding, a purpose, and an applicability, paragraphs. So I think that if to look at those, that kind of in my mind takes that resolution aspect of the whereases and puts them actually into the code. So if people would review those 3 sections, possibly prior to the next meeting, that may be a baseline to start to confirm that this is still the direction we want to go, or just to get familiar of the basis of the original 253 of where it came from.
Very good, very good. Anybody else?
Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner.
So I agree that we can probably do as much homework ahead of time, and being pointed in the right direction is helpful. My hope would be that Hoyt and his team had identified at the onset of their work what the goal and the objective was, and that would fall in line with our thoughts as well. So I think if Hoyt is able to direct us in any of the documents that he's prepared, what the goal and the objective was of the Law Oversight Committee and their overhaul of it, that would be great. If not, I think it would be helpful if he starts with that at the second meeting.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Let's finish the commissioners and we'll go to you, Hoyt. Any other commissioners want to comment? No. Hoyt, go ahead.
So in response to Commissioner Chiznuski's remarks, I'll try and work something up for, I guess, the next meeting. And it'll actually be a follow-on to, my mailing to Susan and also to Ed. So we'll be working on it.
Very good. Thank you very much. With that, members of the public, Rick Perry on yet? No. Bunky Markert on yet? Nope. So I'll be reaching out to any of the commission or committee chairs that are not here for their feedback and to respond on what timeline they need. If there are any other comments from the commissioners, if not, we're going to call it a close. If not, I want to thank you. I think we've got a very good program, and I think that as soon as we get through all these studies, it's going to be a little slow at the beginning, but I think once we get all the feedback from all the different agencies, we'll be able to maintain a forward momentum and get this done in the timeline. Have no clue whether 6 months plus. So with that, I want to adjourn the meeting at 3:51 p.m. Thank you all very much. Thank you for watchers and participants.
Thank you.